what do you think has been the biggest kind of paradigm shift in the industry for agents?
If you're not excited about this business, I think you're missing the boat because there's tons to be excited about right now.
We talk a lot about content for Instagram, content for YouTube, what ads you should be running on Facebook, like that kind of thing. But we don't talk a lot about that one-to-one video that no one ever sees.
Welcome back to another REVB pod. Katie, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Tim?
I'm mediocre at best, but today we've got Jimmy Burgess. And Jimmy, listen, I'm looking at Inman. It says 30 years of experience in the industry. You're the OG, man. Like you've been around for a while.
Yeah, you really did your research really right at the beginning, right there. I mean, that's great. I appreciate you doing that.
That's the only research you did. Don't let him fool you.
I know. I appreciate it. Hey, man, listen, Tim. This is my 31st year in this business. I don't know when I became the old guy. You know what I mean? That's like been in the business 30 years, lost all his hair because the market was tough. All the whole deal. I mean, it's been 31 years, and it's been great.
I do love the term OG because then it sounds way better than old guy. And
I love the fact that you think of me as a gangster. I do love.
Oh, I thought he was just using OG for old guy. I don't think he was using it for.
No. So it is funny though. I've been in the business 10 years, and like I still feel new. Like I still feel like I just got here.
Do you?
Yeah, I do, but I was at an event and somebody was like, "Oh, you have to meet so and so. You have to meet so and so. They're awesome. They're this. They're that." And they were like, they're like the next you.
Oh,
the next.
And I'm like, what do you mean next me? Like I'm me, and I just got here. Like there's no next. Like I haven't been here long enough to have a next. And yeah, but I guess time flies when you're selling houses, or not selling houses, but in this industry.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'll tell you this: 30 years does go pretty quickly. Your 10 will become 30 before you know it. It is unbelievable to me. And I will tell you what's fun about it though is if I look back, obviously there's challenges, there's all those things, but I'm more excited about the business now than I've ever been. I mean, this opportunity like this, us just being able to jump on, do this, sharing ideas, the way that collaboration is available now to anyone that chooses to do so, the ability to understand how to do the business. I mean, we had to try to figure all this stuff out ourselves, back in my day, kind of thing. So literally like it's an amazing time to be a professional agent, and especially those agents that are leaning into all the opportunities right now. If you're not excited about this business, I think you're missing the boat because there's tons to be excited about right now.
Well, if you look back at the last 30 years, in the last couple, like what do you think has been the biggest kind of paradigm shift in the industry for agents? I know you said collaboration and all that fun stuff, but like in the business of real estate, what do you think is the biggest shift that agents should be excited about and looking at?
Well, I'll tell you this, we call it, paradigm shifts, but look, history just repeats itself. I mean, the same thing that we went through in 2008 or 9, whatever, depending on where you were, it's the same thing that's happening now. It's getting back to the fundamentals. It's understanding that, the cliche thing that it's not a transactional business, it's a relationship business. Just understanding how to communicate your value, whatever it is, because there's not just one way to do this. I think it's just getting back to the fundamentals. And I think we have these ebb and flows where it just gets so easy. And if you can fog a mirror, you can close 10 deals. And then it gets tough. And everybody thinks, oh, it's never been this hard before. And we've never had to do it this way. Well, in reality, it's just a ebb and flow. I mean, I think that the industry, I almost think of it like an anchor. The industry has an anchor sitting here. The boat will drift, with the tide, different directions, but it always comes back to center. It always comes back to how are we going to help those people that are wanting to sell, get their home sold as fast as possible for the highest price. And look, that looks different today than it did 10 years ago. It looks different than it did 10 months ago. And then it's how do we find and give those buyers the ability to have confidence to go out and to change their lives by having home ownership as a part of it. So I think, we talk about all these paradigm shifts. For me, I think the biggest thing we've seen over the last few years is that we have a lot of agents, even a lot of agents that have had experience and been in the business for a while, that maybe forgot, or there's a little bit of, maybe it's marketing atrophy. They didn't have to exercise those muscles, so to speak, that we're now having to get back and relearn the business. And so I think I've seen this cycle so many times where if you see a certain group of agents doing certain things, like right now, in my opinion, it continues to be doing video consistently, building a personal brand, having a social media following and growing that on a consistent basis, communicating with your database, going back to those fundamentals. If you show me, this is my opinion, if you show me the agent who's doing the most and the best video in their local community right now, in my opinion, if they continue to do that consistently, I don't care where they are in the business right now, they will be in the top 5% of agents in their local market in the next 3 to 5 years. We've watched this. You and I, 3 of us have watched this. So I think it's just getting back to those fundamentals is kind of what I'm seeing, Tim.
Well, what's funny about that is you said 3 to 5 years. And to me, that is the biggest issue that our agents have with video, is that it's taking them 3 to 5 years to become that top agent. And they don't want to put in that work for long enough to get there, you know?
Yeah. It took me 72 videos and 14 months to get my first 100 subscribers on YouTube. Now think about this. This is the thing. And everybody's like, well, why did you keep doing it? It wasn't working.
Just for some context, how many subscribers are you at on YouTube now?
We're pushing up on 30,000. And so it's, you know, and I'm 4.5 years in. You know, this is not like something I've been doing forever. It's like everything else in life. It is understanding and knowing that my first video, your first listing appointment, whatever you're doing is going to be probably the worst one. Hopefully you're going to get better. And so consequently, then as I had the data, I began to see, oh, well, gosh, I got 14 views on that one instead of 6. I mean, it's just using the data and saying, well, people may be responding to this. And then adjusting to that and understanding that I'm going to get better as I go through the process. I will tell you, the great news is nobody has to do 72 videos to get 100 subscribers now. I mean, it's literally like, I mean, we've got the plans and understand it so much better. I mean, it's so much easier now, but we were just trying to figure it out ourselves, or I did back then.
So actually, real quick, so I just pulled up your YouTube, right? And so one of my favorite things to do when I go to someone's YouTube is I like to share my screen so we can talk.
You're getting
okay.
a channel breakdown, Jimmy.
Yeah, no. So one of the first
Huh?
things I always like to do is like, okay, yeah, this is great. Like you have a pinned video, obviously 67,000 views, where you're talking with Tom Ferry about the NAR settlement, you know, hot topic. But I always like to go to the videos and then click oldest, right? Because like when you look at the latest, like normally people, once they've been doing YouTube for a while, they've got good thumbnails, right? Like these are good, right? Like, but then you go to oldest. Your first video had over 1,000 views. Was that immediate or was that in the long term?
How long has that been? What is it? 5 years?
6 years ago. Yeah. 6 years.
Yeah. And you got to understand that was 6 years ago. That was me literally, I probably watched it 150 of those times. I mean, that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was go over there and check it. And then I'd be like, oh, well, gosh, I don't want to ruin the algorithm. So I got to watch it all the way through. But these were, and if you notice, like some of these where I had some breaks there, you know, where I tried to stay consistent with this. But yeah, I appreciate this, Kay. This is really a humbling experience here. And I really appreciate that. You want to look at this guy. I mean, come on, what is going on? You know,
I think it's super important though, Jimmy, because we all, by the time somebody's on a podcast, by the time somebody's on stage and they're talking about how they're doing well and crushing it, getting all this business, by the time that happens, people are at chapter 10, chapter 12, chapter 30. And we don't go back and look at chapter 1 enough times to let people know, hey, this is what my chapter 1 looked like. And so they can, because people don't feel good about their chapter 1. And so they never get to chapter 2 or chapter 3. So I think it's awesome to go back and look at that stuff.
Tim, you know what I always say too is I mean, look, you may be seeing chapter, you know, whatever for me now. What I really don't want you to go look at is 2008 and 9, that chapter 7. You know what I'm saying? I mean, literally, you know what I'm saying? All that struggle we went through then, but it is literally one of these situations. I think you're absolutely right. Is we have this, and we live in such a society today with social media where we're seeing the highlight reel. And so we're seeing these things, but in reality, everybody starts somewhere. And the people that actually have the success are the ones that push through and don't necessarily try to compare themselves and understand that it's a process, and they just do the work. I mean, ultimately.
Well, I think there's this fine line, which you've worked with so many agents, and I'm not going to keep harping on the fact that you've been around for so long, but you've worked.
I'm going to say it anyways.
You've worked with a lot of people, and I find that there's this balance between being inspired by what somebody's doing and letting it pivot and improve what you're doing, and also just being frustrated by seeing what somebody's doing and feeling like you're never going to get there. So like, what attributes in people, like how do you talk to agents to make sure they're on the right side of that fence? Because in today's social media world, like social media can be inspiring or it can be depressing, and things can change like that really quick. So how do you view kind of that situation?
Yeah, so I try to figure out where they're at, and then I try to find other people that were just a couple steps ahead of them. So in other words, I will utilize it's the next step. It's literally where are we trying to get ultimately, and then I try to backfill the activities down to a daily activity list so that we've got a checklist that I can give them confidence that, hey, look, this is an if-then business. If you do these things, then you will receive these results. I've always, I've used that forever, and I always feel like I've said it so many times that it's just I can say it in my sleep. But the old John Maxwell, that the five, where he's talking about if you strike a tree 5 times, that sooner or later the tree's going to come down if you just sit the axe down and you hit it 5 more times the next day. So we try to find those activities that we can do on a daily basis and I do a total blank on what he calls that, the law of 5 or whatever. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, it's basically that if we just find what are the 5 activities that these folks can do on a daily basis, and then we have some accountability here. I've got 3 or 4 agents that text me every evening that they did those 5 things, and then we watch for the progress, and we understand that nothing moves in a straight line. There are ups and there are downs, and there are valleys and there are peaks. And so as we do that, I try to have them focused on where we're headed instead of where we've been. And then I try to keep them focused on the progression, because the problem is if we're looking at everybody else, we're not necessarily, we're comparing ourselves and we don't see the progression as it happens. Does that make sense, Tim? I went a long way.
Makes a ton of sense. And I am a simple-minded human, so if it makes sense to me, you're doing well.
Then you're on the right track.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. I think back to like early on when I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall trying to figure things out. I did it. We had this small kind of, now we would call it a mastermind, but it was just a couple of us jumping on a Zoom call and talking about what we did and sending each other our stuff that we did and like getting feedback from each other. And what's important, Jimmy, about what you said is like we were kind of in similar places on the journey. So we were going through similar things, and a couple of people were a couple steps ahead, a couple of people were a couple steps behind, but everybody was close enough that we were dealing with enough of the same problems that we could like move forward together. Whereas if somebody was way further ahead, they weren't going to get any value from it. If somebody was way further behind, they weren't going to get any value from it. So like, and I can tell, right, Katie, like in the REVB community, we've got a bunch of people that like text each other thumbnails and text each other titles. And then like, I'll see Trey do a video and it'll blow up. And then I'll see, Bill Wilson and Dan Parker do like very similar things the next week, because I know that they're helping each other out. And so finding those little accountability groups or whatever you want to call them can be game changing. Like how have you seen those be successfully created? Because I can tell you, Katie, every year at REVB, I always make this pitch to the audience. I'm like, don't just come here, take notes and leave. Connect with people. Yeah. And then keep that connection going through the year. I try every year. I know it happens a little bit, but like, how are some ways that you've seen that be successful? Because you've kind of seen agent communities build over the last 30 years.
Oh, I thought you were asking Katie. So, no, I mean, what I've seen is exactly what you're talking about. You can't wait on somebody to create it. You got to go create it yourself. And Tim, I've watched you do this. I mean, I've watched you, create these environments, whether it was your Facebook group back in the day, whatever it is. I mean, obviously Katie does this as well. She does it locally, with events, and just gathering.
It's agents. Okay. You can say that I do it better though. It's so I'm not better at many things with Katie. So if you could give me credit, I would greatly appreciate it. Great
online. I think Katie does it extremely well in the local. Literally before we got on this, I said, "Hey, Katie, I want to jump on the calendar because I want to run some things by you that I want to do locally because I don't know anybody's doing it better locally." So, but what I would say is I would just say, figure out, I call them OKPs, our kind of people. Look, there's certain times, and look, it's been different at different seasons in my career. Who are my kind of people? Who were the people that were, and I've got 3 attributes I look for: humble, hungry, coachable. And because that's who I want to be. And so if I can surround myself with people that are humble enough to realize they don't have it figured out, and they're humble enough to share their ideas because they're not worried that somebody's going to do what they did and they're going to lose somehow, as if we don't live in a life in a world that's full of abundance. I want somebody that is hungry, and I'm not talking about just money. I'm talking about hungry to learn, hungry to serve, hungry to be, become who they're supposed to be.
Tim, not snacks.
Coachable. What's that?
I said, Tim, not snacks. He's like, I'm kind of hungry.
I'm kind of hungry.
Yeah.
I saw him. He lit up. I noticed he lit up. And then that coachable part is look, I want to be around other people that are coachable, because typically coachable people are the people I learn the most from. It's crazy how that works. And so that's the type of community that I try to create. Tim, what I've done for that is, and I've tried to do it a couple of different ways. I always try to have groups of young agents. I'll give you an example. Every year when the 30 for 30 comes out from Realtor, whatever, and look, there's typically neither one of y'all have been on that. Katie, you weren't on under 30, were you?
How about you write somebody a letter or something,
That's right.
It would have been good before we were 30. Now we're just pushing that 40. So
no. But what I do when I get that list that comes out is I typically understand that there's typically, with any of these types of lists, there's going to be about 10 out of the 30 that were probably a favor to somebody that was on the, whatever. They're good, but they're not, you know what I'm saying? I mean, let's be real.
Jimmy, that could be us. We could be the favor.
Hey, that's exactly right. Exactly.
Well, neither of us qualify anymore, Timothy. Neither of us.
That's true. That's true.
Right, yeah, I know. And then I'm waiting on the over 50. 50 over 50. That's what I'm waiting on. You know what I mean? It's like,
let's start it, man.
Check this out. Next time I get carded, we'll be at Shoney's for the senior discount. That's what I'm expecting. I've not been carded in so long. I want it so bad. I'll try to wear a hat. You know what I mean? I try to do the whole thing. But literally what I do with that 30 under 30, total sidebar. Sorry about that. 30 under 30 is I'll find the 10 that I know that are probably good. I can probably learn something from, but it's not the group I'm looking for. 10 that are really good. That's a great group to know. But then what I do is I look for that 10 that are game changers. These are industry changers. These are ones that are doing things uniquely. They're taking massive action. They're not waiting on somebody to show something for them. They're creating things. And what I'll do is I'll reach out to that group. And, that's what, when we're talking about Inman, I mean, that's been easy for me because I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about writing an article on Inman about, the next generation. Love to hear that. Jump on Zoom, hear all about that. And it's been tremendous for me. I'll give you an example. I did this about 3 weeks ago. Man, I got to get y'all in touch with this guy. This guy is Omar Rashid is his name.
Oh, yeah, up in DC.
You know him, right, Katie?
Yeah.
And I mean, look, this was, I just found him and I was like, I got to meet this guy. So we jumped on the Zoom and I was like, this is my guy. This guy is brilliant. He's 22 years old. Of course, he's selling a ton of real estate, but he has built this $750,000 worth of revenue where he's doing social media for agents in the DMV, basically in that area. And this kid's 22 years old. I mean, and literally I got on there and like we were talking about, he was like, he's asking me questions. I couldn't ask him enough questions. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was one of those where when I first met him, I was like, he's super coachable. And so consequently, he's going to be the guy that I'm going to learn the most from because he's out there searching for answers. So anyway, that's the kind of thing I think. Develop the group. Circling back, 5-minute answer to the 2-second question. Find your people. Find your people that are similar to you. Like you said, Tim, a step ahead, a step behind, or where you are. And you be the one that creates that group. Set it up. I mean, you can do it now and say, hey, listen, why don't we, after REVB, why don't we get together next Friday on Zoom and we'll do it every other week. Yeah. And we'll just get together for an hour and talk about what's going on with our businesses. Well, it's so valuable.
I think the problem is oftentimes you find people that everyone at the event is super gung-ho, but it's like who will continue to have that same momentum as time goes forward. And so when you find the people that, again, you guys are kind of in similar seasons or chapters of your journey, that's where, you can kind of continue to move along together. Because if you're too far ahead and you're with people that are behind or you're too far behind, that gap is a little hard to overcome. So I always find it interesting. One thing that I thought was funny, Tim, when you said that, because Tim always says that every year. He's like, find your people, find a group, get some accountability buddies, whatever that looks like. I'm laughing because we're starting to post some of the the content of like biggest takeaways, and there's so many people are like, I'm gonna start a new Instagram channel, or I'm gonna start a YouTube page or whatever. And so I've seen some of their like friends commenting, be like, oh well, how is that YouTube page going? Because like either they did or didn't do it. So it's always interesting as we come up on the next year for the next event, what that looks like.
That would be a great spot. Okay, I would love to see that if y'all were to put together the people who said they were going to do something last year that did it, and showing the results would be huge. And then you should have
I thought you were going in a totally different direction.
I know. Well, that's the thing. I think that's the other side of this is because we all know who can take this and be like, oh, and by the way, here's the post from, whoever that said they were going to do this. And I can't find it. Can't find it.
That's totally our vibe too. That would be a hit. Like our people would love that. Yeah.
Just rotate them. Hey, action taker.
Not so much.
Great.
Could be one of our reset the rooms, Tim. I like it.
That's
an idea.
All right. So Jimmy, you got video, you've got AI, you've got I do think that so many things have really stayed tried and true and whatnot over the last 30 years. I went from saying I wasn't going to bring it up. Now I'm going to bring it up every chance I get. I do think, though, that we are in this moment of, I feel like, more shiny objects. And I don't know if it's because the market has slowed and so agents are looking for more shiny objects. But I do think when I talk to agents a lot, they're like, hey, I'm listening to 5 different podcasts and I'm doing this stuff. And like, it's hard to figure out where they should focus. And so while agents have all this stuff in front of them, like, where do you think they should be focusing?
They should focus ultimately on what is going to generate the more opportunities for them to have real estate related conversations. It all boils down to nothing happens until we talk to somebody. And so for me, foundationally, every single person that I have that I work with, or even in myself, I use a framework. I use a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 framework, basically I want to have 5 specific activities. It goes back to what I talked about that 5 activities a day. For me, I mean, it's different for everybody, but I'll give you one of the agents that's really seeing some progress right now. He wants to have 5 real estate related conversations. That's his 5 every day. And these are new, basically prospects. He wants to have 4 conversations with sphere of influence folks. He wants to have 3 thank you notes that he sends out every day. He wants to have 2 lunches or breakfast with sphere of influence people every single week. And he wants to do 1 unsolicited video CMA every day. And look, it's different. When he first started, it was 10, 8, 6, 4, because he wanted to build momentum. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you got to figure out where you are. But now he texts me every day. Streak's still alive, and that's accountability. It ultimately figure out. I mean, if you're great at open houses, then sit open houses just so you make sure you have your 5 real estate related conversations. If you're great on the phone, literally circle prospect. We're getting more results right now with circle prospect than we've had in years with just talking about, our buddy Jimmy McElroy talks about marketable moments on the sales, hosting an open house, doing those things. Whatever it is for you, figure out what that thing is for you. There's not just one thing. That's the thing. We all get so caught up in, I want to do video like Katie does. I want to, if you aren't, there's certain people, like I've always said that, I used to have a podcast, and what I used to say is I've got a voice for video. I don't have a voice for podcasts. You know what I mean? People used to say voice for radio. I just,
what are you talking about, man? You got I wish I had your voice.
Well, thank you, Tim. I really appreciate that. But yeah, this is one of those, you know how it is. So anyway, we're all always our own worst critic. But basically, I would say whatever. Look, Katie, I would love to hear from you because I love the way that you focus back in on what's the most important thing. But for me, I don't care what they're doing as long as it's leading to real estate related conversations.
Well, and so one thing that you brought up on your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 that you just went over with one of the agents that you work with is the 1 unsolicited video CMA. And so we talk a lot about content for Instagram, content for YouTube, what ads you should be running on Facebook, like that kind of thing. But we don't talk a lot about that 1-to-1 video that no one ever sees, right? Well, the person you're sending to hopefully does see it. But, the videos that aren't public facing, right? Can you dig in on that concept? Because we've talked about it before. I know you've coached it for a very long time. What is an unsolicited video CMA? What does that look like?
Yeah. So basically they've not asked for it. It's unsolicited. It is recording the screen. I use BombBomb just because of the analytics, and it told me how many times they opened it, what all those kind of things. It lets me know if they open it 3 months from now. Also, it kind of cues me up that way. You can use Loom, Zoom, Party of One, whatever you want to do. Just you're recording your screen where you're down at the bottom and they can see your screen, and you're going through a 3 to 5 minute overview of their value. I had 3 key components on that thing. Number one is I want to capture their attention and want to get my click-through rate. So the first thing that I did is I had the same email subject line for every single one. It was their address and it was valuation update. And for whatever reason, our click-through rates were through the roof on this thing. The other reason it was through the roof is because the BombBomb, I would start with Google Earth. So as soon as I press record, it goes 3, 2, 1. I've got their address pulled up. I press enter. It comes in from outer space on top of their house. Yeah. I'm just going to tell you right now, if somebody sends me something that comes in from outer space onto the top of my house, I'm probably pressing play on that video. And so the click-through rates were stupid, 90+% when I originally did this. Now, again, depends on your relationship with the people that you're sending this to. But then so I basically just start the video this way, okay? It'd be like, hey, it's Jimmy. It's been a little while since I gave you an update on kind of where your value is. Wanted to give you an idea of where it is here in February 2025. Now, just in case you're curious, in the future, if you ever want to come back and see where your value was here in February, all you've got to do is go up and search in your email under your address or valuation update, and you can pull this back up. Now, I did that for a couple reasons, and I do it on the back end too. That has the tail on this thing that we've never seen with other things. I said tail on this thing. And so this has the longevity on this strategy that gives it the opportunity to yield results well into the future. Okay. Second tab up, you can use whatever CMA you want to have. But basically, I was super basic. I just had the MLS, active, pending, sold. I wanted it to just be just like I'm sitting at the table with them. And then I just simply say, here's the ones that are for sale. Here's what's under contract. Here's what's sold. As you can see here, based on these, this is a range of where your value is. And I always said that. I always said, hey, look, I'm going to give you a range of value because I haven't been in your house. Maybe you have some deferred maintenance, or maybe you've done some upgrades I'm not aware of. But if you're curious about where your value is, take me 5 minutes to walk through. I can tell you exactly what it'll sell for. Just a subtle hint. I'm not even, and then I move right into it and I say, hey, look, I don't know if y'all are like me. I definitely want to know, what would this mean financially to me? And then I pull up my third tab, which is the estimated seller net. I do all my disclosures on, hey, look, this is an estimate. It doesn't have your prorations. It doesn't have your mortgage, but here's our typical closing costs in a closing here in our area if you were to sell. And I break that down and I just give them that number. And then I always wrap with the same thing. It's, hey, listen, I hope this has been of value. Know I'm here as a resource. And if you're ever curious again in the future of where your value was February 2025, all you got to do is go into your email and you just pull up your address or valuation update and it'll pop up. Here's the reason why I do that so much on that, because look, I never asked them. Notice that. I never asked them if they wanted to sell. And every single time I've freely given, it freely comes back. And so literally what I did with this is I just gave value in a way. The first time I did this, because, it's one of these, if you can't, I always joke about that. With my accent, I'm not a professor. I'm not going to speak from theory. I'm going to tell you what I know that I know because I've done it. Before I ever rolled this out to anybody, I did it for 3 months in my sales business. I made a list. I worked for 72 days. I did one a day, every single day. Look, and I don't think you can do this forever. These are seasonal activities. You know what I mean? But this is something that
depends on how many homes you sold.
That's exactly right. But this is something that every single day that I did it, in that 3 months, I listed over $11 million. It came back because average one take me about 30 minutes. You know what I mean? And if I had groups of areas, I could do 4 in a pile there, I guess you could say, kind of, because I could do 4 right there because I've already got the comps pulled up. But 30-minute a day activity, it was a $3,600 an hour activity. Now think about that. I mean, and look, people will say that, oh, you're on 38, higher prices. This was years ago. And even if it was
back in my day,
that's exactly right. This was 28 years ago. No, I'm just kidding. But literally back
they didn't have BombBomb back then, bro.
That's exactly right. I know. That's exactly right. I just pulled up my bomb. This is when you're getting old. I pulled up my bomb the other day. Somebody was asking me, says, well, how many of those things have you sent? And I was like, well, I send them for other stuff too. It's like 3,200 BombBomb videos that I've done. And I was like, oh my gosh, think about that. And how many years you've got to do a video a day to get to 3,200. So anyway, total sidebar. But the biggest thing is that I saw activities here, even if your sales price is half of mine, It's $1,800 an hour activity. And it is where you are just creating momentum. You're giving, we talk about giving value. That's the way you give value. You do it in a unique way that people remember. And I will promise you, I'm doing this with a group right now in North Texas with a lender. He wanted to do this for a group of agents. They're clipping along at 8%, on this thing. I mean, 8%, listing out of this thing. So, I mean, it's like every 10 you do, you're getting one. So think about just actively doing these things.
Well, and so I think that, you said this isn't an everyday thing, and I made the joke of depends on how many homes you've sold. And so, I think about it where you can do this for your clients, you can do this for your sphere, right? So maybe you didn't sell them the home, but they own a home, right? And so you can give them that info. So that opens up to more people. But then one thing that I love, and we do this whenever we're doing, because we normally do twice a year CMAs for clients and sphere and whatever, is you then posting on your story oh, holy shit, I just did this equity review for a client and they've gained, 20K, 30K, 50K, whatever, over the past however long it's been, year, whatever. Do you want one for your property? Right. And then if people say yes on the Instagram poll or on your story, or they send you DM, then you're adding to the list to have more people to send it to. And so I always love the showing that you're working. That's something that we've been talking about with our team, is when you're going to do open house, don't just say I'm going to do an open house. Show you putting out signs, show you printing flyers, show you door knocking, show you doing all of these things, because that's the interview for the next, for the next listing. Yeah. And so, there's plenty of things that you can do to show that you're working while you're doing these CMAs.
Yeah, it's so good.
There's a couple of things. One, the video CMA piece, I think, is probably one of the most underutilized tools to generate more listings. I think a lot of people do it, but for how well it works, it's crazy to me that every single agent, that isn't doing a CMA a day. I do think that there's differentiation, though, in the video CMA. I think the video CMA is so much more powerful than just sending somebody an updated value PDF thing with a bunch of graphs and whatnot on it. Yeah. Being able to do a video CMA and then text Jimmy and say, Jimmy, hey, just sent you a video about your home value. Check it out when you get a chance and let me know if you have any questions. People connect better. They're like, oh man, Jimmy took the time out of his day to make me this video. It's far more impactful. The other piece that you said was you don't ask them, for the sale in the CMA. You're not like, hey, so if you're thinking about selling, let me know. I was in our team meeting yesterday because we were talking about different things we could do, and somebody does a lot of handwritten cards, and so one of our newer agents was like, hey, so when you do the handwritten card, do you put your business card in there?
Yeah.
And I was like, look, my kid comes up to me and she says, Dad, I love you. And I'm just so grateful for everything you do for us. And I just really appreciate you being my dad. Right? That would just melt my heart. And if she followed it up with, can we go to the store and buy Legos? It would totally rip out all of the sincerity of what she just told me, what she just did, how great that was, and what she just said and everything else. And it's I think as agents, we listened to Hormozy do this thing where it was you're either all giving or you're all selling. And when you get stuck half in the middle, you shoot yourself in the foot. So it's you're either nothing but value, nothing but, hey, I'm here for you, nothing but supporting you, or you're selling. But when we get stuck in the middle, it just sucks away all of the authenticity out of what we just did for somebody.
So with that being said, Tim, what Legos did you end up buying her?
Star Wars, obviously. Yeah, it's always the Star Wars Lego set. But those are also for me, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah. And let me say this, Tim, growing up on the farm that I grew up on, what you're talking about is you either need to be all selling or all giving. And the way that they describe that is you want to be one or the other. And the way they said it where I grew up is the last thing you want to do is be straddling a barbed wire fence, because sooner or later you'll get cut. And so that's the visual I want to leave you with. But no,
thanks, man. That's great.
I know. No, I couldn't help myself. But here's the thing. I think what you're saying though is, look, if you're doing this and you can't fake it either. People can smell if you're just trying to sell them something. Generally what I was doing with this was I truly was trying to figure out what is the biggest thing that when I first started this, what is the biggest thing that homeowners want? And they want to know their value. Well, how can I deliver that in a way that's personalized, that's unique, that they're going to remember? And if I do that, then obviously I'm going to stay top of mind. I want to just mention this because I started that when I was talking about that it does have longevity here. I'll give you the first time that I did this was it was about 18 months before the pandemic hit. I was still in sales, still had my team. I was modeling this for my team. And then I shifted into more of an executive role, slowed down my sales, obviously, because now I was growing our company, doing those things from that standpoint, less sales. I did not reach out to that original group of 72 that I sent out. The pandemic hits 18 months later. All of a sudden, BombBomb starts lighting up on my laptop, telling me that people are watching these videos. And remember, I told them, hey, if you're ever curious of where your value was. So I ended up listing an additional $5.4 million from that 30-minute a day activity that I did for 72 days, 18 months earlier. So if you do like what Katie's talking about, where now you've got these folks where it's systematic every 6 months, I cannot tell you what we're seeing as far as the compounding value of that, where it's an annual deal or it's every 6 months for those folks. And we're even doing this for the folks that are saying, hey, we're going to list in 6 months. Those are folks that we are doing every single month one of these for. I mean, we want to just continuously be there because, I mean, we've all had that situation where we thought, oh, well, I'll call them in 5 months. And then they show up 3 months on listed with somebody else. So anyway, I would just say, just be consistent with these things. They absolutely work. And I'll tell you what else it did. I didn't even realize I was doing this. You do 3,000, videos where you're forcing yourself to look into the camera and you're doing those things and you're connecting in that way. It makes it way easier to then connect as you do additional video. It's a great way to build some reps for video that's personalized, that one person at most is probably going to see that thing. So I think it actually helped me get more comfortable on camera as well.
Well, and I think the other thing is, just from a tactical standpoint, is that you should be telling your clients when you're closing that this is something that you do. Hey, in 6 months, in 12 months, whatever it is, every year we do this, or every 6 months we do this, right? So that then when you send it, they may or may not remember that you said that, but it's not like, well, why is he sending me this? Like, there's no way I'd be selling. Because like we always tell people, hey, it's good to know what's selling just for your knowledge, but it's also good for your insurance purposes. It's good for, things like that, that if you need to change your insurance coverage because your value has gone up, that's probably something that you should be doing, right? Or alternatively, we can also give you lower numbers for you to protest your taxes with, hey, these are the shitty homes that is sold in the neighborhood, Right. So making sure that they understand that that's a relationship that lasts long after closing, I think is really important.
It's really good. Really
I think there's to me, there's two main reasons why to market to sellers. And when I say market, I mean to stay in contact to sellers that converts. Home value, I agree, Jimmy, is the number one. Like that's your number one way to be of value to homeowners, is to keep them up to date on their home value. The other piece that I don't think we do enough of is bringing them buyers. And so when we say that, like, I think we could all get better at just knowing when we have a buyer in a neighborhood, knowing who we know that has sold a home in that neighborhood, and just saying, hey, Katie, I've actually got a buyer that's looking in your neighborhood. Let me know if you got the inside scoop on anybody that's thinking about selling.
That's exactly right.
Like, done. Yeah. And I think Sharon always says we overcomplicate things. Like, a seller wants a buyer and a buyer wants a house. And we're marketing, I love Popeyes. I love market updates. I love all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I want to know how much my house is worth. And then it's also interesting if Jimmy is sending me people that are buying, because when I start thinking of buying, I'm be like, Jimmy has all the buyers, right? Jimmy knows how much my home's worth, and Jimmy has all the buyers. You're going to convert a much higher, amount of your database. And the other thing is, sometimes such a high percentage, not as much in the last year or two, but such a high percentage of real estate transactions are what I call casual transactions. Like, I wasn't planning on buying a house, but this thing popped up and I don't know, we just ended up buying it. And it's the same thing. Like, hey, I've got somebody that's looking here. Oops, bought a house. Yes, I've done that 3 out of 4 times. I've bought a house. And I will say, like, I'm not thinking about selling. But all of a sudden, Katie says, hey, I've got somebody looking in your neighborhood. Let me know if you got the inside scoop on anybody that's thinking about moving. I'm like, I could move.
Right.
And it gets those gears turning. So I just love those two things for sellers. It's like, keep them updated on their value, and let them know when you have buyers.
And I think it's great for the buyer. I mean, we're talking now in this situation where you're talking about how do we show what it is that we do different from other buyers, agents, or other agents. I mean, that's part of that plan that we put together, that we sit down when we sit down with buyers, is we tell them that, hey, look, we're going to find your house, and we're going to start with the multiple listing service, but we're also going to start at the same time with our network of agents that we've built relationships with over time. And we're also going to start by, once we identify the area, then we're going to do exactly what you just said, Tim. And you'd be amazed at how that just locks them in. And then we even share with them. I say, hey, look, I'm going to call these folks, but this is the letter that I'm going to send. This is what we're going to do. And this is how specific we're going to be. And man, I mean, they're locked in. They are locked in at that point.
Well, and I love that because, buyers, what are buyers' worst feelings about real estate agents? We're overpaid and we just open the door and they're gonna find the house online and send it to us.
Right.
And the traditional agent will try to figure out some way to explain how we're great negotiators and we're this and we're that. And it's a bunch of crap that they don't care. Like, we want them to care, but they don't care.
Right.
But when you can say, hey, we're going to find you things that aren't on the market. We're going to get you the inside scoop on stuff before it hits the market. And we're going to get you in there before you're going to see it on Zillow. That's what they care about. That's all they care about. Don't get me wrong. I know they need our great negotiation. I know they need all our knowledge. I know they need it, but they don't care. They care about the fact that you can find them houses that they haven't seen before. And so I think that's also an underrated, underutilized thing that we should all be doing.
It's expected versus unexpected. I mean, that's the way we build, really true valuable relationships. And, the life cycle, and understanding the life cycle and the value of a buyer. I mean, here we go again. I mean, listen, if you're going to be in this for 10 years like Tim, I mean, his buyers from his original are now his sellers. And probably some of them have been buyers that became sellers that became buyers that became sellers. I mean, it's
if Tim sold houses.
Hey, they still call me. All right. They still call me.
I went back to 10 years ago. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I mean, listen, you have to understand the life cycle and the value of a buyer. And when you're doing those things, it doesn't take, I mean, I hate to say this, it doesn't take a lot to stand out from our competition. Just communicate in a way. And a lot of times it's just communicating the things we do. Yeah. But that lack of communication it creates a question about whether you're really doing anything.
Yeah. I love it. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received in regards to, since this is the Real Estate Video Blueprint podcast, in regards to creating content?
Just post it. If you thank you, Katie, for pulling up my first ones and seeing those. But listen now, because now everybody's going to go do that and they're going to send me you suck. And that's fine. I can take it. But
no, here's the thing though, is 6 years of consistent video, you don't suck, right? Yeah. But it's always fun because people look at the videos you create today. People look at Ken Posick, people look at all these, because YouTube's really the only place that you can actually do that. I'm not scrolling back to the beginning of your Instagram.
Right.
And so it's something that is interesting to see because we all have that. We all have the shitty videos with bad sound and the terrible thumbnails, and they live on your YouTube. You don't delete them. And, it just shows the journey. So,
I would say just get started and just, and I know that's easy. I would say if there's a second one to that, if that's okay, 1A, 1B. 1B would be to notice what those that are having success are doing and just model after it in your local market. I mean, I don't know how many people in other markets I've taken. What was Brad's deal he did? That was moving to Calgary in 2024. And now he's just changed it to 2025. Moving to Calgary in 2024, everything you need to know. And I've literally said, if you'll do everything you need to, moving to Tallahassee, Florida, everything you need to know. And then literally just take the exact same thing with your suitcase like Brad had and a check and a no on his thumbnail and copy that thumbnail, because I use vidIQ and it tells you that that's a 40 times his norm, response that he's getting, that he's getting, seeing those results. It's model. You don't have to figure this out. Just model it after some people that are doing those things and just get started.
And I think, Jimmy, that's great advice. I think that I'm gonna put a little piece next to it, which is model after Brad's video, but don't let the fact that your video doesn't look like his stop you from posting it.
I agree. Yeah.
Similar thumbnail, similar title, great, but don't spend all the time trying to make the video look as good as his. Like, make your version of it, put it out, and then guess what? Redo the same video 6 months from now and make it better, because you get better. Like, don't let people's great videos stop you from making crappy ones. That's always like my biggest thing. I'm like, the best thing you can do is go make a crappy video, because it's the only way you get better. Like, that's what I love about pulling up your old videos, is it just shows like the only way to get good at video is to be bad at video. And keep going.
No doubt about it.
Jimmy, I appreciate you hopping on today. You're the best.
You're the best. Thank y'all. I really appreciate it. Hey, thank you both for all that y'all are doing for all of us. I mean, look, I know we've known each other for a while. Katie, especially, we've known each other for a while. What y'all have been doing has helped me become better, and I know it's helping the industry. So thanks for being givers. I really, really do appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll see you at REVB.
See you there. I'm committing.
All right. Nice.
I wanted to have hats like I was you know what I mean? I wanted to be like, I'm taking my talents to REVB. But listen, Tim, I thought about that. I know you were pushing me a little bit, and I was like, man, I got weddings with my daughter, and I got all this stuff. I'm coming, and I'm bringing.
All right, let's do it.
With me too. I'm bringing a group.
I love it.
All right. So in fashion of, we've been giving away a ticket an episode. If you DM me your favorite old joke about Jimmy Burgess on Instagram, you're the first. If you're the first person to DM me an old person joke about Jimmy, I will give you a free ticket to REVB.
Look at this. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Who's in charge of the budget over here with all these free tickets?
I am. It's fine. It's fine. It's coming out of your paycheck, but it's yeah. So it's all good. It's all good. All right, man. Looking forward to seeing you in April, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
We'll see you later.